back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
And I'm Luke.
We have a special Halloween episode for everybody this week.
Spooky.
We'll get to that in the news segment. First, we're going to talk about what we're doing around the yard this time of year. It finally started to cool off. However, not before we had late heat going into October. It was still like 80 degrees.
Well, the frost date around here is usually get frost on October 15th. It was still 70 during the day, maybe 65 around October 15th. And it didn't actually freeze until like the 20th.
That would have been... Finally, we got a frost warning probably about 3 days ago.
Yeah.
So about the 23rd. Yeah.
So it's really strange to have that long of a fall. Like the leaves are still on the trees, and they'll probably still be on the trees by the time Halloween comes, which is also unusual.
But the abnormally warm weather, I understand, led to some feeding issues for you.
Yeah. As we've talked about before, I got my Master Beekeeping certification, University of Montana, and they offered up a feed solution, which they suggest beekeepers use, which is basically 90% carbohydrates, 10% protein, so pollen sub. And they suggest using it in like a Ziploc bag, and you cut a slice across the bottom of it so that all the frames have access to it. And the bees either really like it, or they take a lot of it out and dump it on the ground. You can't really tell. You didn't see it on the ground, so I don't know what they're exactly doing with it. I think they're eating it. However, the other thing that's around this time of year is small hive beetles.
Well, it's still warm.
It's still warm.
Yeah.
And small hive beetles are still out and about and still taking advantage of the hives. I didn't have that many. I didn't before have that many small hive beetles until I put these feed shims on, and they got in. Because they can crawl into the corners, they crawled into the back corners with that Ziploc bag.
Well, you were saying the bees couldn't get to the far corners.
Yeah, the bees can only get to that cut that's in the beginning and that's open across the bag. And the hive beetles they're small and kind of crawly, and they can get back to the corners where it's protected.
So how much was actually left in the corner? Are you talking like the size of a quarter in a corner, or are you talking like a quarter of the bag?
A quarter of the bag.
Oh, so it's a lot.
It's a lot. Because it's got a protein source there, the hive beetles love that protein source.
So you think this is fundamentally the way you were feeding it problem?
I think it's
the plastic bag method?
I followed the instructions, right? And I believe that the instructions, because they're University of Montana, small hive beetles, not that big of a deal.
Well, if you're putting it on much colder in the year, when it's much colder, this might not be an issue, but like...
Maybe not, but I could still see it being...
To me, it sounds like
overall
if
issue.
the bees can't get to a quarter of the patty because of the plastic bag, it's a design issue. That's a design feeding mechanism issue.
So the feed was full of small hive beetle larvae. Small hive beetles, I must have killed a few hundred, which doesn't sound like that much for if we have listeners down south, but for here in Illinois, it's more than I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So dumped the bags into another container just to not lose all the feed, because it was I had 20 bags of the Ziploc bag feed on.
And how, like about a pound each?
About maybe a pound and a half.
A quart or a gallon?
Gallon bag.
Well, you probably like 2 pounds then, right?
Yeah. Probably a pound left, though. They ate about half of it. And so had to dump it all. And I could have just tossed it. I could have just grabbed the stuff and tossed it. Also, the bees there's low food out right now.
Yeah,
and so
they're still actively looking for stuff.
So they're not happy, and you're just right at the edge of setting off major robbing issues. So ended up dumping the bags back by the honey house, and the bees were all over it at that point. And then you could see how many larvae were in there, and there was hundreds. So if I'd have left them and not gone back and checked, they'd have been I would have had a big issue.
Serious problem there.
Yeah. So I shared it in our Discord server with the folks that have that recipe. The recipe's up at the Riverview Road Apiary in our What's the Buzz section. It talks about what that recipe I use is, but it's basically consistency of like Play-Doh.
And so are you recommending that we feed that out of a different container then?
Yeah. So because it's like Play-Doh, I just make it into like a ball and place it on in a smaller, like a snowball size that you can make with your hands.
Yeah.
And then place it on top of the frames, and they can get to it that way.
With a feeding shim?
Yes, with a feeding shim. Or if you do it right, you can use an inner cover. If you have the inner covers that are spaced weird.
Yeah. Well, the side that's like they have two. They're not symmetric,
right.
so that you could flip a fat side up or a skinny side up.
And I found that through the years, they're not all made the same. Some of them are symmetric, some are not. Yeah. But if you have a fat and thin side, if you have the fat side so that it gives space, you can place that in there, and they get to it, and they clean it up quickly. So I tested that and found they cleaned it up within a day or so, day and a half of it's like a snowball size. So they're hungry. They're out there looking for stuff, but that would have been a really bad thing. And the other point of it is that it was passed on by my master beekeeper course, right? So you think, hey, I'm giving this information. This is going to be good. And you got to realize how localized beekeeping is. Some of this information, even the stuff that we talk about, may not does not fit all sizes, right? You may be further north, you may be further south.
I would say that any given beekeeping activity is universal for beekeeping. You just need to time that for whatever seasonally appropriate time is working for your location.
Well, and getting your bees to understand how they respond to it, right? Like don't put it on blindly and go, okay, I was told this and this is going to work and it'll be great. No, get in there, understand what's happening, and react to the situation, especially when you make problems, you need to fix them.
You had some nukes still left over from the year. What are you doing with all those?
No, the 6-frame ones, I combined it down to 6/6s
or otherwise. So how do you work 6/6s?
Well, I did a newspaper combine. So those that don't know what a newspaper combine is, basically you're taking a sheet of newspaper, you put a strong hive. I usually put the strong hive on top. So you put the stronger hive sitting on top of the weaker hive and cut some slits in there. And sometimes I'll squish the queen in the weak hive. Sometimes I just let them figure it out. The populations were so drastically different in my hives this year. So when I combined them, that I wasn't too worried about the strong queen
and found
dying.
I was going to say, did you find the queen in the weakest one and squish her or not?
No. I did find the queen in a couple of them. I pulled, I squished. I don't squish them, I drowned them. I throw them into some isopropyl alcohol. I have a container of all my queens that I kill.
Queen lure.
Yeah, it makes a queen, supposedly makes a queen lure. Usually it works if the swarm doesn't have a queen. Like that's when it works pretty well.
So what's your 6/6 hardware though? Because that's not standard. Like
it's not.
It'd be a 5-frame, like a standard wooden 5-frame nuke.
Yeah,
doesn't really stack. Like if you're building the ones off the make 5 out of a sheet of plywood,
right?
They don't really stack all that well because of the dimensions of them. So what are you using for wooden wire?
They're the Lyson styrofoam ones.
So you are using styrofoam then?
I am. My plan actually next year is to pull some more. I'm going to buy some more of those. 1, because you can stack them. And 2, because of their insulation value. And 3, because they have a lid. They have a nice little lid that gives you space on top. So the feeding shim's kind of built into those. Now they do fill it back up with comb. And so you got to be proactive and
you could probably run an inner cover to prevent some of that, but you don't run inner covers on a lot of your stuff. So, and those 6/6s, are you physically going to stack those tight with each other on the same stand, or are they just spread out just like a regular hive?
They're the ones that I can fit next to other hives. I push them up next to other hives so that they share that heat, right? And it limits that single side to wind, just because of the winds we get in winter can be pretty rough, right? It can be a cold day, but man, if you get that wind chill effect, it's rough on some of those hives.
That brings up another question. I know in the past you've built some elaborate foam structures around.
I've done all kinds of elaborate
groups of hives. What have you settled on this year?
I'm doing
because I haven't quite gotten around to winterizing. It wasn't quite cold enough for me to decide to go through the effort of winterizing.
Yep.
But that's probably in our our droning on segment would be winterizing, but I think it's worth talking about now.
Yeah. So I'm going to make northern wind blocks for my hives. I've tried boxing them all the way in, 4 sides in, and boxing it all in. I've tried northern wind blocks. I've tried nothing, and I've tried 2
You get some bee cozies.
And I tried the bee cozies. Bee cozies work okay. They give access to the hive for the mice that are out this time of year. So, and I've had a vole that chewed through a wooden hive. I know it was a vole because I found it dead in the spring, and the bees had stung it to death. But it actually chewed through the wood where the 2 wood pieces joined. I don't really love bee cozies. There's always mice in them. Are they always? But further north from here, I have hives on Neighborhood Farm. Those hives, he always puts bee cozies on. He does it, and he ratchets those things, and they have huge, high survival rates. Now, I'm really good about treating them for Varroa. I do it late season, but still really good survival rates.
Are you still running your 3-frame Crane Castle this time of year?
I am. I'm trying something new this year.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We're going to experiment a little bit. We talked about the feed before. Those have feed jar positions on them.
They have lids that have a hole cut in they kind of have an inner cover piece of 1x, because if you pull the exterior cover off, you can't just expose all 3 of the 3 of the chambers at the same time, otherwise the girls fight. So they have an inner cover 1x, and I think you have some covers that have holes in them for mason jars.
I do. And what I'm doing is I pack the mason jars with feed, like the bag of feed.
Like the like a candy feed, the
Krabby Patty that we just talked about, that the hive beetles got in. So I pack those and place them on top to see what would happen. And
with some sort of lid, or just sort of?
Nope, they just have free access to it because it has Play-Doh consistency. Remember?
Yeah.
So it sticks up there decently well, and they're eating slowly away at it. So I'm going to try to feed.
Are you going to put insulation in the rest of the box then? Because you're going to put a 10-frame deep around the jars, right?
Yeah. So and that's what's there is a 10-frame, or you can actually fit a medium on and still have enough height with the jar, just barely. I'll probably I have 10 frames on currently. I will probably fill the top of that with the purple R10. So that'll sit on top of the jars.
Around the jars, or
no, I'm just going to sit it on top of the jars.
You're going to fill the void space with
R10,
like an insulation, like a.
I haven't really decided. I thought that maybe I could, but I'm also worried about just making a really good mouse nest there.
I don't think the mouse will get into it.
Okay, maybe I'll try it.
And even if they did,
it'll give them some. At least it'll give them some insulation. I can go get some pink fiberglass and throw it up there.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure your dad's got some sitting around in the attic.
Yeah, I'm sure that I know that there is
in a black trash bag that I had to move when we were doing a project. Anyway,
yeah. So I'll probably do that. I've not ever had 3 frames survive winter here, ever.
Were you saying last year that the middle one survived, but the outside 2 ones didn't?
For my 3 frames?
Yeah.
No, none of my 3 frames survived. My 4/4s, those survive.
Your Palmer nuke. So a typical and a classic Palmer nuke setup. So there's 4 frames, and then a center divider and 4 frames in a 10-frame box.
3 of the 4 of those survived.
And you running more of those this fall?
I'm highly considering running more of those this fall. I think I'm definitely gonna run the 6/6s. Palmer nukes are neat. They're really kind of a organizational hive that allows you to redistribute resources to other places.
I know you leaned heavily on them this spring to rob resources off of for balancing, because they seem to build really quick.
Yes,
but that's typically probably an activity that the average hobbyist is not going to find value in, because it takes a lot of management, and they're not wanting to, they don't have that many hives that they need to balance, right?
I would use it for swarm control if I was a hobbyist. Really, I usually tell people 2 hives and a nuke.
Yep.
And if you really wanted to use that Palmer nuke as a nuke, then it gives you a little more space. You could do 2 nukes pretty easily. And you have the ability to overwinter them. So when you come to spring and you're like, hey, I have enough bees, you could sell one of those nukes as a 4-frame or, basically a 4-frame nuke in spring is what you're getting.
Go in and find a honey frame off of somewhere else and stick that in as a 5th frame.
And that's a reasonable nuke to sell.
Like Randy said, there are some people that love a frame of honey in their nuke and really want a frame of honey in their nuke, and you're like, hey,
you don't want that.
If you want to put all bees in there, that's good for me. So for what I was doing this past week, we did some fall inspections. One of my students decided that we would top him off with some feed one last time, and I cracked covers on probably 7 or 8 hives, and they all looked really good. Populations looked good. Weights were good. I pulled a couple frames out of the top boxes to see what was going on. They were typically frames right in the middle, frames probably 5 or 6.
Yep.
And they were full of honey. A lot of them were capped. You look down the sides, capped honey, both sides of the neighboring frame. So I liked what I saw. Weights felt good.
So when you say weights felt good, talk to me a little bit about what you mean.
If you get into a hive, so double deep, and you want to crack the 2 boxes, and you lift off that top box and it's super heavy, that'll give you an idea of how much that weighs individually.
Yep.
I don't know. There's a lot of reason to actually need to get into a bottom box this time of year. I'm just wanting to make sure that they've got good feed on and population seems decent at this point. Once you've done that, you've got an idea, okay, this hive has got enough heat on it for the winter. So once you put all that hive back together, when it's sitting on your stand, you can pick it up from the back of the hive. Usually I work my hives from the back instead of the front. So I pick it up from the back of the hive, and so you're picking up essentially half the hive weight, and you can get a rough guesstimate of what that feels like to lift that hive that has got good amount of feed on it, and use it as a reference point. Like, I'm not really concerned about what the actual number is. I know several years ago you actually clipped a luggage scale on the back of the hives and actually lifted to see what the actual luggage scale said, and I think it was roughly half the hive weight, right?
Right. It was about 35, 36 pounds.
Yeah.
Ish.
Somewhere between the 35 to 50 pounds.
Yeah.
So you could walk down your row of hives and do that to get a rough idea of, are your hives doing okay for feed this time of year? And if you got a light one, then that's an opportunity for you to put some 2-to-1 on at this point, and then throw a candy board on above that, some solid feed probably for deep winter. Those were the checks I was going through. So I was popping lids, pulling a frame, and everything that I looked in looked really good. So I'm anticipating. I did my OA treatments, my dual pads, or not OA.
Formic Pro.
Formic Pro. This late summer, early fall. So I don't have a mite count to give you, but feeling good about it. So I'll be going back and starting to put some winterization on. The club has got these totally enclosed 2-inch rigid foam covers that will completely cover a 2-frame deep with a feeder, with a top feeder on. Is the size of those boxes.
Big boxes.
They are considerably tall. I only got 3 of those, so I'll pick three of the hives to get those, and then I think I'm going to put a Bee Cozier 2 on a couple others, and then I've got some foam rings. Is the best way I can describe it, to cover some other ones. That's where I was at this last inspection I had.
Well, and when you lift the back of that hive, you can tell. Like, the ones that are light are really light.
They'll tip pretty quick, pretty easy.
And realistically, this time of year, you're pretty late in trying to get weight back on those. To be honest, I've said, oh, these bees are screwed. They're not going to make it. We'll do what we can and move on. And then in the spring, they've surprised me with, oh, hey, look, you made it.
And then I've also had hives that have not made it through winter and left 40 pounds of honey on top of the hive, and you're
Absolutely.
like, why did you guys die?
Touching the honey. You're like,
I'm like, you were doing so good going into winter, and then you're like, well, it was probably a mite issue, and then, yeah, I guess,
or a queen issue.
The other thing that we're probably also working on is we're approaching craft season, craft fair, fall holiday craft fair season.
Yep.
And some of us, we also take our leftover cappings and wax from frames that we melt down, wax from cutouts that we melt down, and we refine that down and we make various products out of it. I know we've acquired several candle molds over the years between the two of us.
We have a lot of candle molds. I've got a honey bear. The honey bear is probably the most interesting one. That was the one that people pick up and they're like, oh, this is so cute. It's a honey bear and it's a wax candle, and they put it right back down.
Yep.
And I've got a really heavy duty one that I never think I'll sell, and until I sell one and they want 3 of them. And it's like a pound of wax for each one of them.
I thought your tapers.
My tapers sell pretty well.
And for everybody out there, the classic tall...
It's a 10-inch taper.
Yeah, the classic tall, thin candle that you would see on a dining room table, they call that a taper.
So those sell well. The twisted tapers sell pretty well. Those are like an 8-inch. The votives sell well for people that want votives. Those are very specific candle types.
But it's usually the candle that most people would burn if they're going to actually light a candle, other than, like your glass jar.
Yeah. I've made those before, too. You have to be careful with beeswax because it burns so hot.
Yeah, usually you want a different blend of wax to put in a container, the container wax, instead of just straight beeswax.
Yeah, and I don't.
You don't blend yours. You just 100% beeswax.
Mine are 100% beeswax.
I have a tendency to blend mine a little bit. I feel like I get a better burn out of.
You do get a. It's not as long of a burn. The candles don't burn quite as long.
The beeswax candles are hard,
but you do get a kind of a brighter. Longer flame, maybe?
Yeah, if you want...
the paraffin mix?
They call it the throw, sir.
Okay.
If you're putting scents in your candles and you want a better throw, which means you can smell the candle, how well it effectively burns your scent and aromatics it, makes it aromatic.
Yeah. I don't put scents in either, because... The beauty of beeswax candles is that they burn clean, and they burn bright, and they burn a long time. And so if you would like to buy the scented ones, that's not for me. The scented things I do are hand lotions, and then my lip balms are kind of scented. Frankincense and lavender are what my lip balms are, because frankincense is good for your skin, and lavender is also good for your skin. So... Those are the ones that I focus on. I do usually make like a small batch of lip balms that are peppermint and things like that, like holiday-ish stuff. But no, my candles I keep real simple and clean.
All right, so at your craft table, you'll have some candles, but mostly focused on selling honey.
I would say 90% of my sales during a craft table is honey. Or during a craft fair is honey.
And you'll bring what sizes will you bring? You bring an 8-ounce, a 15-ounce, a quart jar. What are you bringing?
Yep, I bring a 3-ounce, a 16-ounce for 1 pound, and then a quart jar. And I'll bring maybe 40 of the 16-ounce. I'll bring like 15 of the little 3-ounce, and I'll bring maybe 6 or 7 quarts. And I'll sell out of the quarts almost every time. People pick up quarts for some reason. That people that love honey want quarts of honey.
Yeah, and that's my experience.
And then people that want gifts, depending on what kind of fair you're at, people that want gifts want the 3-ounce ones. And the people that are kind of want honey or are going to send honey to a relative somewhere, those are either the 3-ounce or the pound. And usually I'll bring some cut comb, maybe like 3 containers of cut comb. And those are hit or miss. But just like candles, it's really strange. It depends on who shows up. People that like candles show up, you'll sell out of candles. People that really like honey show up, you usually have a reoccurring customer, and you'll sell out of honey. But people that just want gifts, it's just all over the place.
I think that's going to lead us into our spooky bee news.
Spooky.
So for the holiday special here for Halloween, Luke has gone and found us some bee stories that are
True. Factual, scary bee stories. Not getting stung in the face, which is also scary.
And also factual.
And factual. One of my helpers just got stung in the face. So
this is stuff like there was in 1984 there was a scare at Forsmark nuclear power plant in Sweden. You know, they've got these radiation detectors that are spread out across the country. They monitor for potential fallout things. That's how they found out about Russia's Chernobyl event, which will actually be a couple years after this event. But all of a sudden, their monitoring stations are flagging. They're like going red because they're sensing all of this radiation. And so they go out. They're trying to find out what in the world is going on. Have we had a meltdown? Have we had some sort of nuclear testing, foreign weapons test that we don't know about? And it turns out,
did somebody get nuked?
Yeah, did somebody get nuked? This is again 84, right? This is the height of the Cold War. Are we gonna eventually have to go? You know, has World War III started?
Yeah.
And are we just seeing it?
And do they need to prepare?
And it turns out it was just bee poop.
Yep. Foraging bees. They went to some weapons testing and reactor sites and found radioactive dust and isotopes. And when they pooped near the monitoring station, which there was a hive nearby, it triggered the alarms.
Yeah, so those radioactive particles sort of concentrated in the bee body, and then, bee pooped it out, and that put a concentrated amount of radioactive material around the sensor, and turns out they're pretty sensitive.
Bees trying to wipe us out. They would, trying to make sure that we're on our toes.
Yeah, definitely. There's a story from 2015, the true story of how the bees attended the beekeeper's funeral.
July in 2015, in Colwyn Bay, North Wales, they had a really interesting, highly witnessed, and highly unusual report. Peter Davies was a 90-year-old beekeeper, had kept bees for about 6 decades, and he passed away. On the day of his funeral, a swarm of bees appeared at the Holy Trinity Church in Colwyn Bay, clustered on the corner of the hearse that carried his coffin. Witnesses, including the funeral director and several attendees, confirmed that the bees were peaceful on the vehicle throughout the service, and when the coffin was taken away to the crematorium, the bees dispersed quietly and flew off in the direction of Davies' former's home and garden, which was where his bees were kept. The BBC reported on it, The Guardian, the Daily Post. They thought that maybe they were drawn by the floral scents or the arrangements there. For those that knew him, they thought the bees had come to pay their last respects.
You going to be a 90-year-old beekeeper?
I would love to be a 90-year-old beekeeper. I probably won't have 100 hives. Maybe I'll just limit down to how old I am, the number of hives I've got. So, was it coincidence? Was it the scent cues? We don't know. I'd like to think that my bees would come visit me, if nothing else, just to make sure I'm dead and I won't mess with them anymore.
That leads us to a story about also from the Cold War / 1950s. Researchers were trying to train bees to detect cadavers. And so with some experimenting, they were able to train the bees to locate 2 compounds that are given off by this decomposition that are called cadaverine and putrescine.
We actually looked them up because we thought that was...
They were just making it up. It's just like if you're going to make a word, hey, dead bodies give off putrescine, you're like, what?
Yeah, that cadaver is making cadaverine right now.
Exactly. Yeah. But, for your trivia night, cadavers make what?
2 chemicals.
2 chemicals.
Cadaverine and putrescine.
So they tried to train the bees to locate those two chemicals with sugar rewards, and it turns out they were able to do this. Because of the way the bees hunt out scents and things, they can actually locate these two unique chemical compounds.
Yeah. The smell of death.
But we did a little bit more digging on this one, and it turns out while we've proved it can be done, there are no active, we'll call it the bloodhounds to go look for, our labs at 9/11 and things like that. There's nobody showing up at our location where we need to look for dead bodies with our box of bees and open up the bees and let them go.
Yeah, not yet.
In reality, it's not actually happening, but it turns out we've done the research. It can be done. It's just, I guess.
And they're currently working on it. 2022 was the last time we saw that they're working on it. So it's still being worked on. We knew bees can smell fear, but now we know that they can smell you dying too.
Is this telling of how we Africanized bees spooky, sir?
I think it's spooky. It's a modern day Frankenstein story.
There was a beekeeper in the 1950s from Brazil. The standard European honeybee, the Italian, and the Carniolan.
Carniolan.
Carnies. I always struggle over that name. He was finding they didn't handle the tropical heat well.
Yeah.
And so he decided that he was going to go over and get 26 African queens and crossbreed them with some European drones at his research station in Brazil in 1956. And from there, the start of Africanized bees began.
Yep. They swarmed, within 7 days of him, or within days, of him doing this, the hybrid queens swarmed into forests, and from there they spread. And we found out that they're way more aggressive than the European cousins. They reproduce quickly. They outcompete native and managed colonies. And they have a huge defensive radius of at least 400 feet from the hive. I also know a couple other things about them. Honeybees tend to not follow you past doorways and entrances and things. So if you jump in the water, honeybees tend to leave you alone if they're swarming you and really after you. They're rarely really after you. However, Africanized honeybees will stay above the water where you jumped in and wait for you to come back up and sting you in the face again. So
that was in 1957. They were accidentally released, and by 1970, they had colonized most of South America. By 1980s, they had crossed into Central America, and by the 1990s, we had the Africanized honeybee in the U.S.
Yeah, the killer bees. But yeah, not evil, just kind of misunderstood. We do have, when you do read about the deaths, though, about people being stung to death, those are Africanized bees. Tend not to be European honeybees.
And since then, the control mechanisms that have been put in place in the southern part of the U.S. has largely managed to make the modern Africanized honeybee a nothing burger in terms of today due to control mechanisms. You catch swarms, they have to be requeened, things like that.
Now, you do see people that do cutouts, and those people have to be very careful down south, Arizona, Texas area, especially Arizona, about the swarms that they pick up, and the cutouts that they do. They have to be careful in dealing with those because they are aggressive. And I'm fairly certain that the ones I work on every year when I go to Mexico with the Mayans, I'm pretty sure those are Africanized as well because I've been stung for standing around. and that almost
looking
never
at them from afar.
Looking at them, no, I was right up next to them, but I was actually holding a smoker.
I've been stung in my apiary just standing around out front the hive.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound that odd.
Yeah, I was holding the smoker, being calm. I'm rarely stung in my apiary standing in front of my hive, so maybe I'm just... But they tend to be a little more come out of the hive and meet you behavior compared to what I have. So what happens when a beekeeper passes away or a calamity happens in the home? We used to believe that bees were messengers for the heavens, and the telling of the bees is an old European tradition. The earliest we find it is the 18th century, but we think it goes much further than that. And it comes primarily from Britain and Ireland, but it's also practiced in Germany, Netherlands, and New England. And what happens is that because the bees are a part of your family, and you weren't livestock or are just there for honey production, they're members, they could sense joy and sorrow. And so bees need to be kept informed of their major life events, so births, marriages, and especially deaths. So if the beekeeper dies and no one goes out and tells the bees, which is when you knock on the colony, I'm not sure that I would be brave enough to knock on the colony, but if you knock on the colony and tell them, your master is gone, but don't you go, you have a new keeper now. If you don't do that, they'll either stop producing honey or abscond, leave the hive, or die in sympathy with their beekeeper.
You would die in sympathy, Luke.
Yeah. In some regions, you have to actually tie black cloth or bits of mourning crepe over the hives, or funeral flowers were laid nearby. Or during weddings, you tie ribbons to the hives. Maybe honey is offered to them to celebrate. It's still supposed to be practiced today. So if you do have bees and you have a major life event happen, you need to just go out and tell them.
Go talk to your bees in your yard.
Bees. Yeah. Be careful. Wear your suit if you're knocking the hive. Because they may come out and tell you they don't want any bad news.
One of our recurring segments we might have as a more popular option is our honey tasting segment, where we give you our best audio descriptions of some random honey that we've tasted this week. Yep. I know it sounds exciting, but stay tuned.
It is interesting. I picked up some honey. I was out shopping at Aldi. It sounds weird, but I've actually never shopped at Aldi before. I've never been in there.
What?
Yeah. Right? I've never been in that grocery store, and I was talking to Kelly about it, and she's like, well, we got to go.
I was perhaps more preferred location to shop. I will absolutely go to an Aldi before I go to a Walmart. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
and I will probably go to an Aldi before I try to go to Kroger.
I was pretty impressed. It's a little bit further away from me than Kroger, right? And my family's always gone to Kroger, and so we went to Aldi, and sitting on the shelf near the charcuterie board is this bottle, nice looking hexagonal bottle of cut comb. And I thought, well, chunk comb.
Chunk comb.
Technically chunk comb, because it was suspended in honey. So chunk comb is beeswax with honey in it, suspended in honey.
So it's a capped it's a little like 2-inch square section directly out of the frame. Yep. That's capped.
Yep.
And it's floating in extracted honey.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. It's something that I make myself and sell some of.
I do too.
And I was interested because the price point is something that I could not compete with.
So we would not want to compete with.
I would not want to compete with
obviously
that.
I could sell my product for that price.
Yeah, so it was being sold for $6.70-ish.
And it was 7 ounces.
7 ounces.
So just under a half pound.
And I would guess that there was probably a quarter of a pound of cut comb in there, maybe.
Yeah. About half by weight was probably the cut comb.
And for those who haven't had cut comb, it's kind of like I really like it. It's kind of like it bursts in your mouth. The only thing I don't love about it, the wax is totally edible. You can eat it. It doesn't get digested. It passes through you. But it's really an interesting experience overall, I think. It's a different way to consume honey. I like it on usually sourdough or an English muffin, something like that. It kind of melts into the crevices. The wax goes away. You could probably have it in tea too, and probably breaks up in tea.
I think I've shared the story before. My grandfather always spread some on a piping hot, fairly well toasted piece of real bread, not a piece of Wonder Bread. This was a piece of homemade bread, so it had some body, some structure to it.
Yeah.
And it was ripping hot out of the toaster, and he would spread it on there, and it would just sort of melt into the toast, and down the hatch it went.
Yeah. So I grabbed some, and Steve and I tried it. It's acacia honey. It was harvested in Hungary and packaged in Poland, according to the bottle.
And this was very light. It looked like a very light spring honey.
Yeah, so it's going to be really yellow, clear, light-colored. Had not crystallized, so there was no crystallization. All honey crystallizes eventually. There was no crystallization evident in the bottle, so it's already made it from overseas to here with no crystallization. I have found that when you put chunk comb in the bottle, it takes longer for that honey to crystallize. I have some on the shelf upstairs that is still, it's been a few years.
Same.
Yeah, so it takes longer to do, but it still happens. We tried it on sourdough. My impression there was, I would not be able to tell you.
It was just a light spring honey.
Yeah.
It was not real notable. It would have disappeared into any of the other light spring clover honeys that you would taste. Nothing that stood out.
Was not sugar water though.
No, it
had floral notes to it. So
it was nice and sweet. However, by itself, as a raw taste directly off of a spoon or a knife or something, you could pick up a few more notes there. I had a note that that had a sort of an earthy note to it that I wouldn't normally get with a normal spring honey.
Certainly not clover.
And you had a different take on it.
So I really don't like licorice. Like, of all the things in the world that I've eaten and been all over the world, licorice of any kind is not my favorite.
So no red vines for you?
No red vines. Nope. No Twizzlers, no red vines, no nothing. There's a bag of licorice on the table where I had friends over and they left a bag of licorice as a joke. So there's no.
I might have to take that with me.
Yeah. No, they actually eat it here. No, I won't eat it. So I thought it had a weird licorice sort of aftertaste, and wasn't my favorite. It's not the first acacia that I've had. I also bought acacia when we went to France. I also remember not loving acacia honey then either.
I did not get a real strong anise flavor out of it. I'll eat some licorice. Black licorice obviously has got a really strong forward flavor to it. I'm typically not a big fan. I'll eat maybe a strip and then I'm done, just to say I've had some again. I didn't necessarily pick that up in there, but it would certainly be a honey that I would put on biscuits or toast or something.
Yeah, I'd put it on biscuits and toast if it was around.
Yep.
And then at that price point, if you love cut comb and didn't care if it was local or not, no, that's fine. We also suckered Kelly into trying it too and didn't tell her our opinion on it. So her opinion was medicine-y aftertaste, which kind of aligns with the licorice, I think, and that's what I think most medicines taste like, licorice. So it's probably why I don't like it. It's a great price point. I mean, Aldi had great prices on a lot of their groceries.
In today's world of ever-rising prices, I am shocked at the quality of food they deliver for the price that it is. You would think that for the price, it is just going to be some crappy, low-tier, filler, all full of filler, full of whatever to get the price point there. And it's shockingly, their red bag chicken, their frozen French fries, they're all top shelf material, and it all comes in at like half the cost of another grocery store, even a Walmart.
Yeah.
Produce is decent. Cheese is decent.
The edamame, if you're an edamame fan, which I am, that's slightly more expensive than Kroger. But that was the only thing that I found that was...
I don't know that anybody's going to Walmart for soybeans, sir, but my lasagna ingredients, you can buy everything you need to make for the lasagna there, including the cottage cheese. I don't know. I've never bought ground beef there. Cottage cheese, noodles.
Ricotta.
Ricotta. Yeah, ricotta. The noodles. The ricotta for lasagna there was like $2 total for the entire pan. A big pan of lasagna, and then the noodles were like $2. Yeah. And like a box of lasagna noodles at Kroger is like $6.
We're way off topic.
Oh, what? I'm sure that people are tuning in.
The cut comb, chunk comb was a good product, and it's there, and it does taste like anise honey. So acacia honey. So if you like that, then great. If you don't,
So the question is whether or not you'll be able to find that at all Aldi's. You should probably.
It's their brand. So it was their brand of Aldi's honey.
I guess it was.
Yeah. So I bet you could. So anyway,
if you're out there and you visit Aldi for your grocery store, stop by what section did you say it was?
It was in the charcuterie section, which was at the end of one of the aisles, just in an aisle ender. It's in a hexagon bottle with a black lid and clearly labeled acacia, and it has a floating chunk of comb in there.
So see if it's in your location and let us know. Toward our last segment here is the Honeybee Hotline, where we try to answer questions that people might have. I had one from a student that says, once you've made up your sugar feed for this time of year, how long can you keep it around?
It depends. Usually, are you refrigerating it? Is the first question that I ask.
So I assumed that it was this time of year where it was cooler.
Yep.
And if you were setting it on a porch or outside where it's cooler, if it's not in the sun, I said 4 to 5 days this time of year.
Yeah, a week. A week's about right. You can push it to 2 weeks if you put it in the fridge. You can smell it, and the fermentation of it matters. So once it starts fermenting, they don't like to take
not
it.
Not when it starts to grow moldy?
It happens about at the same time. Gets little black specks of mold in there. But this time of year, they also really slow down at night when they take it, and it can be cold, so you cannot feed. That's not true. You should not feed in what's called a Boardman feeder. So it's a jar that sticks out the front of the hive, because that water overnight will decrease in temperature. It can actually harm your bees because they'll drink the water in. It's lower than 50 degrees. They can't raise their body temperature, and that causes problems to the bees. If you're going to feed, it needs to be a frame feeder, not a Boardman feeder.
Or a top feeder
or
above
top
the
feeder.
hive. Yeah.
Be very careful with what you're feeding. They prefer you feed 2 to 1 because it's less moisture for them to remove.
This late in the year, yeah.
Yeah. And then also, when you're making your 2 to 1, if you heat that water, be really careful, because if you burned the sugar in there, it's also poisonous to honeybees. Don't overheat the water. It's got to be warm enough. I think I can get it out of the tap warm enough in my house to make
I
2 to 1.
can't. I have to run mine in the microwave.
Okay.
But I don't do mine on the stove.
But don't boil the water, and you should be fine. And if you do, just be really careful. There's specific temperatures. If you go back a couple episodes, we talk about it. 113 to 120 Fahrenheit. I just checked my notes. I have another question, which is an interesting one. I have a friend that keeps bees, and he wrote me, and he said he's been a bad beekeeper this year. He doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can tell on him. He hasn't checked his hives in a while.
You should just listen to the podcast.
He should listen to the podcast. He hasn't checked his hives in a while, and he's still got supers on. So this was this is as of October 20th. What do I do?
Congratulations, you have extra winter feed.
That's exactly what I told him. He said, you have feed. And his next question was, well, I really want a treat for mites. One, you're a little late in treating.
Yeah, but I thought you said you were going to treat next week or in November.
That's my fall treatment. So I do a spring, a after harvest summer treatment, and a fall treatment. I treat 3 times. And you're right, I will treat in November. However, my bees now that we've got in our hives are our winter bees. Those are our fat bees. They have slightly different physiology than our summer bees. They have larger fat bodies, and they've already been born. So a lot of these bees will survive through October, through November, through December, even into January. They'll start dying off then. Since they survive so long, I need them to be really healthy. So I treat basically in August. August 12th is the day I like to be done by. So that if you go back, and everyone can do the math now, so my mite population's low, so that when I go into fall, my bees are healthy, and I just kill the rest of the phoretic mites, which are the mites attached to the bees on the outside. It's not really phoretic. Those of you that are scientists that are listening to this going, no.
That's the word everybody uses.
I know, but they're not phoretic. They damage the bees on the outside. Those will die in November when I do my treatment. Another question was sent to me by one of my students that is really excited about having bees and potentially having honey in fall. And he has no super on his hive, but he has a very full deep and he's running 2 deeps. He has a very full deep, and he asked, "Can I extract honey off of my deep? I think it's ready." That was his who texted me. "Can I do this? I think they're ready."
This time of year, no.
The answer is no.
If you want your hive to survive, no.
Now, what happens when they get to spring, and it's April, and things are starting to flower again, and I've still got they did really well for winter for whatever reason, and I've still got frames of honey up there in my deep. What about then? Can I pull then?
You can, but I would also be looking at my other hives in my apiary and which hives are on the weak side, because you will always have some on the weak side coming into spring. So that's an excellent opportunity to balance resources between your strong ones and your weak ones, so that your weak ones have a better chance of getting over that last little hump in March or April before the real flow starts to hit and things really start to take off. So it's an excellent opportunity to save that and move it to a hive that needs it, as opposed to pulling it. I have found that overwintered honey frames are much more difficult to harvest.
Exceptionally difficult.
The cappings on those have, for
Collapsed.
lack of a better word, like solidified. Like to decap overwintered honey frames is a real chore. Like nice, freshly capped, like within the last month cappings, my heated capping knife just slides right through it. And every now and then I run into a frame that I'm sawing at it, and it's just every inch is just a fight.
I won't use my knife on those. I pick every square inch, and picking 1 or 2 of those, it's not bad. Picking more than that, I feed them right back to the bees. So
would I be excited about reserving those for table honey? Nope.
No.
I'll let the girls have it.
And it's fall. It's fall honey. So if you like fall honey, then great. If you like that strong straw sort of taste, great. But it's not for me. I'll take spring honey over fall honey every day of the week. And so to me, no, just leave it on for them. Rebalance it. And realistically, that's, of all the things we do as beekeepers, that rebalancing is probably one of the most important things you can do. And Steve's nodding at me. It's a little late, so we're both tired. But yeah, he's nodding at me, agreeing. That's where you learn, learn about your bees.
It's also the thing about having more than just one hive as a beginner, right? Like if I get 2, maybe 3, it really starts to even out your odds for Rob and Peter to pay Paul, and really starts to even the field out for, having success
and
long term.
And the production that you get from that rebalance is way more than that single frame that you moved around.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that about wraps it up for this episode. We appreciate everybody listening. Once again, if you've made it to this point in the podcast and you want to help support us, we have a Patreon out there. We might have some Patreon episodes coming up talking about trophy mites. It sounds like we're going to line up some speakers to talk about trophy mites. If you're interested in hearing more about that, certainly let us know, and we'll make sure you are on the list for getting that episode. I appreciate everybody listening to this point in the podcast. And remember, every beekeeper needs a buddy. We hope you found one of yours right here.